Hello, void and all who inhabit it. It's me. And there was once a brief moment in U.S. history when monopolies were illegal. I'm being hyperbolic, of course, and technically the right term here would be oligarchy, but as of recording, Warner Brothers is still miraculously up for sale, and Paramount is still circling like a shark in bloody water because the only thing stopping them, apparently, is shareholder pride. Fuck my chungus life. Which is a little concerning. There's several concerns surrounding Paramount's specific interest in Warner Brothers, but the further consolidation of media has been an increasingly troubling issue since the 90s, and concerns about the film industry turning into an oligarchy have been floating around since, well, its inception. So get in, loser. We're speedrunning film history. I don't actually think you're a loser, by the way. Picture it, the golden age of Hollywood. A time of never seen before dedication to style and form. Stars are born, legends are made, and production studios are king. This period of cinematic history will also be known as the studio era due to the business model that established said kingdoms. But to get into that, we first got to talk about the three branches of filmmaking. First, there is production, making the damn thing. Specifically in the studio era, this refers to producing films on studio-owned lots with studio-contracted cast and crew who typically wouldn't be able to work for anyone else. Next, there is distribution, or the process of making the thing available to the public. You might hear this stage referred to as distribution and exhibition, but those were traditionally separate steps, as exhibition was solely playing the thing for audiences, usually in movie theaters. Distributors are separate because they are the ones marketing the film and searching for places to play the film. Distributors broker with exhibitors for a certain number of screens in a theater, for example. Or at least they would. But during the golden age of Hollywood, studios could control all three branches of filmmaking with ease. For example, Paramount would produce a film on their own lots and then advertise for audiences to come watch the new release in your local Paramount theater, which only plays Paramount movies. This is known as vertical integration. Vertical integration doesn't mean other production studios, distributors, or theaters didn't exist, just that it was extremely difficult for them to be successful when going up against these juggernaut studios. That is, until the 1948 Supreme Court case of the United States versus Paramount Pictures Incorporated. Although the case and subsequent decree would name Paramount most prominently, this case included all of the major studios, known then as the Big Five, the fastest growing studios, known as the Little Three, and all necessary executives and subsidiaries. The Justice Department's case, which was initially launched in 1938, is a prime example of Roosevelt-era antitrust law at work. The problem is simple. Y'all own too goddamn much. More specifically, the Federal Trade Commission believed that there might be some illegal trading afoot due to block booking, which was when studios would sell multiple films to independently owned theaters in an all-or-nothing kind of deal. Studios, who would share little to no details with theater owners about the slate of films, would be able to guarantee a sale of like 40 movies at a time, irrespective of quality. On top of this, studios, namely the Big Five, started to purchase theater chains as well in order to ensure their slate of movies would be played. The Supreme Court eventually comes in via the Federal Trade Commission's case and says,
yeah, you can't own all three parts of this process.
Studios are directed to give up exhibition, which at the time was mostly via owning movie theaters, and utilizing imbalanced distribution practices to ensure dominance over certain screens. You might be wondering if the streaming model kind of violates this, and yeah, it kind of does, but hold that in your mind pocket for now. The resulting Paramount Decree was a monumental antitrust mandate curbing the growth of a potential oligarchy that would have been able to restrict, among other things, creative freedom and control. But there was an immediate negative impact to theaters. When studios could no longer guarantee that all their movies would be exhibited, they started to get stingy with the filmmaking. Studios wanted to be sure that if they released something new, it would be another propaganda. This led to making fewer, more expensive films. With fewer movies to show, and with the introduction of television as an entertainment competitor, the number of theaters began to dwindle. This shifted production mentality also led to the studios struggling to stay financially afloat. Over time, studios would become subsidiaries of larger companies. At first, it was all budding media conglomerates consolidating assets, but the 80s and 90s would see the beginning of telecommunication companies, electronic companies, food and beverage companies buying, if not full-on creating, film production studios. These studios were no longer operating on their own or as portions of their own larger media company because they were broke. And like no shade, I'm something of a brokey myself. But this difficult financial structure takes us back to Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers Pictures, the film studio, functioned as an independent entity for the first 44 years of its existence. In 1967, a third of ownership was sold to another production company that merged with Warner to create a parent company in control of multiple assets, including the Warner Brothers Pictures Studios. That parent company was bought out by another parent company that had to reincorporate into another parent company that was solely media-based. From there, things were running smooth until 1989, when Time Inc. and Warner Communications announced their intention to merge. Funnily enough, Paramount was actively trying to prevent that deal as well. Even funnier, and I don't mean funny haha, is that the eventually successful merger of the company later known as Time Warner would spark an era of consolidation via the creation of enormous media conglomerates. Something notable about previous merging and chopping and screwing is that major studios were initially buying out smaller competitors and then later being acquired by unrelated companies. However, Time Inc. was itself a massive media company. The proposed merger begged the question of, if two media companies mush together, where's the line separating their work? Especially given that Time Inc.'s catalog focused on journalism and news media, a 1989 article in Times Magazine, no less, brings up questions of integrity and objectivity. But the concern wasn't too concerning because the merger would go through and Time Warner would become the largest media conglomerate for nearly 20 years, which again opens the doors to a whole lotta. However, empires are meant to fall. And in 2018, Time Warner was acquired by AT&T. AT&T would own the various branches of Warner Brothers related media entities until 2021, when we'd see yet another merger. Warner Media, as it was known at the time, merging with Discovery Inc. was a way for AT&T to shed Warner Media as a subsidiary. From my understanding, AT&T no longer wanted the debt associated with operating in the entertainment industry, but for this quick and dirty rundown about studios partnering with companies in unrelated industries in order to stay afloat, this shift also means that the studio's safety net was gone, leading to, among other things, Warner Brothers now being for sale. Ironically enough, in a similar position to 1989, where a successful merger could cause a monumental shift in the industry, given that the most competitively interested buyers are other media conglomerates and companies. This isn't just concerning because various restructuring processes cause unnecessary chaos for employees, nor because tons of shifts leave a 100-plus-year-old media library extremely vulnerable. Another media company being able to buy Warner Brothers is a further erosion of the safety guards and practices that are preventing all of media from being owned by very few people. It's kind of ironic the way capitalists actually really don't like free market competition. It's also ironic that this all starts back with Warner Communications in the 80s, setting precedent for one media company to be able to acquire another. Because at this point, we're not really looking at studios anymore, but one small bubble in an overwhelming infographic trying to merge with another because of stock shares or something. Oh, I said we were going to talk about streamers. So, streaming services having original series and films that are only available on their platforms seems like a direct violation of the Paramount Decree. No? Well, sorta kinda. Despite government request, the Supreme Court did not find vertical integration illegal. The Paramount Decree really speaks to studios' relationships with theaters, which might hint at why certain production houses wouldn't want to put things in theaters. But also, in 1985, the Department of Justice said, yeah, we're not really enforcing the Paramount Decree anymore, which, quote, effectively dissolved the authority of the decree. Granted, that's 22 years before the advent of Netflix, the first to ever do it, and 28 years before their first original series. I'd argue that the disintegration of FinCEN, which we've talked about before and we'll talk about more in the next video, removing TV-specific regulations, and the insistence that subscriber video on-demand services, which is the biblically accurate name for streamers, be considered separately from traditionally regulated media, has allowed for tech to once again move faster than the law. Also, probably most notably, in 2019, the Department of Justice announced a plan to sunset the Paramount Decree, with it formally being retired in 2022 because antitrust restriction was no longer necessary given that the old model can never be recreated, as if greed is not constantly innovating. In my opinion, vertical integration is absolutely being recreated via the streamer service originals model, but there's currently nothing stopping them. And seemingly nothing stopping a juggernaut like Paramount or Netflix from cannibalizing another juggernaut. Help us, Lena Khan. You're our only hope. If you made it to the end, thank you for making it to the end. If you're watching early from Patreon, thank you for your continued support of the channel. Special shout out to this comment from the Wokesploitation movie video. Wow. That said, I could spend more time breaking down some of the film theory and history that I just will drop on your foreheads in these videos. This is me attempting to do that with less sociologically related rambling, hence why it's a bit shorter. We're gonna see how many more of these I do, but we will be getting back to the sociologically related rambling wound up in film history for the next video, actually. But until then, stay safe. I'll catch you in the next echo chamber.